During World War II, the war against the Nazis was not fought solely on the battlefields. Behind enemy lines, a covert war was taking place, fought by spies, resistance fighters, and intelligence operatives who risked everything to undermine the Nazi regime. Among these brave individuals were women who stood at the forefront of the resistance efforts, defying societal norms and putting their lives on the line to fight against the Nazis. The stories of these women remain largely untold, but their contributions were monumental. Starting with Violette Szabo, who was one of the most famous female spies during World War II. Born in France in 1921 to a British father, she joined the Special Operations Executive, a British agency tasked with conducting espionage in Nazi-occupied countries. After her husband, a British soldier, was killed in North Africa, Violette volunteered for a dangerous mission in France. Her mission was to help the French resistance by providing vital intelligence to the Allies. In June 1944, Violette was captured by the Gestapo after being betrayed by a double agent. She was tortured for weeks in an attempt to extract information, but she never gave up any details. The Nazis sent her to Ravensbrück, a notorious concentration camp for women. There she was executed in February 1945, just months before the war ended. Her execution was brutal, and she was shot in the back of the head. Despite the horrific end to her life, her bravery has been remembered, and she was awarded the George Cross posthumously for her efforts. Odette Sansom was another SOE. She was born in France in 1912, but moved to Britain at a young age. After marrying a British soldier, she joined the SOE during World War II. In 1943, she was sent to France to work as a wireless operator for the French resistance. Her mission was to help organize sabotage operations and gather crucial intelligence. In 1943, Odette was captured by the Gestapo. She was taken to Fresnes prison in Paris, where she was tortured for months. The Nazis used methods like sleep deprivation, waterboarding, and beatings to try and break her. But Odette refused to reveal any information. After being tortured, she was transferred to Ravensbrück concentration camp. Fortunately, she survived and was liberated in 1945. In recognition for her bravery, she was also awarded the George Cross, but she was the first one to receive this honor. Noor Inayat Khan was not just a spy, she was an extraordinary symbol of courage and determination in the face of unimaginable adversity. Born in Moscow in 1914 to an Indian Muslim father, Hazrat Inayat Khan, and an American mother, Ora Ray Baker, Noor's upbringing was unique and far removed from the typical life of a secret agent. Her family moved frequently during her childhood, but it was in Paris that Noor's life took a turn towards something extraordinary. Noor was a descendant of Tipu Sultan, the Sultan of Mysore, known for his strong resistance against the British Empire. This noble heritage, however, would not define her entirely. Noor was deeply influenced by the values of peace, compassion, and spiritual depth, which her father, a Sufi teacher, instilled in her. Her early life was marked by her passion for music and literature. She wrote stories, poems, and was known for her gentle nature. But when war broke out in Europe, Noor would set aside her peaceful beliefs and step into the dangerous world of espionage. When World War II erupted, Noor was living in London with her mother and younger brother, having relocated there after the rise of Nazi occupation in France. Although she was a pacifist, she felt a strong call to fight against the evil she saw spreading across Europe. Noor's decision to join the war effort was heavily influenced by her strong sense of duty and a desire to contribute to the Allied forces' efforts against Nazi oppression. She joined the SOE and was trained as a radio operator. The job required handling secret communication between the Allies and the resistance in Nazi-occupied France. Radio operators were critical in passing intelligence back to London, and their work often meant life or death. Her training was demanding and rigorous, but Noor's calmness under pressure and her determination made her an excellent candidate. After completing her training, she was sent to France in 1943 under the codename Madeleine. The mission was dangerous. France was occupied by the Nazis, and agents working for the resistance faced the constant threat of being caught, tortured, and killed. But Noor embraced this perilous mission, ready to play her part in the war. However, despite her skill, Noor's cover was eventually blown in October 1943. A French collaborator betrayed her, and the Gestapo captured her. After her capture, Noor was taken to Pforzheim prison. The Gestapo interrogated her relentlessly. They used all sorts of torture techniques to try to extract information about her mission and the people she was working with. She was subjected to cruel beatings, sleep deprivation, and constant psychological abuse. Despite these horrific conditions, Noor remained silent. The Nazis believed that they could break her, just as they had broken so many others. They thought that her calm, peaceful nature would make her weak, but they were wrong. Noor's resolve was stronger than they could imagine. She refused to give any information, and even in the face of unimaginable pain, she stayed loyal to her comrades in the resistance. She remained unbroken. After enduring these tortures, she was moved to Dachau concentration camp in 1944, one of the most notorious and brutal camps run by the Nazis. In Dachau, the treatment of prisoners was even harsher. Noor continued to resist. She refused to give her captors any information, even when they threatened her with execution. And then just a few weeks later, she was executed by a gunshot in the back of the head, a common method for Nazi authorities to silence their prisoners. Noor's story remained relatively unknown for many years after her death. However, her bravery was not forgotten. She became one of the most celebrated female spies of World War II. In 1949, she was also posthumously awarded the George Cross. Denise Bloch was another remarkable woman who became an integral part of the SOE. Born in 1919 in London, Denise was an ordinary young woman who, like many others, was thrust into extraordinary circumstances by the war. Initially, she worked as a secretary and was a student of languages, skills that would later serve her well as an SOE agent. When the war broke out, she felt a strong sense of duty to her country and sought to join the fight against the Nazi regime. In 1943, she became part of the SOE. Denise was trained as a courier. Couriers played a vital part in the underground network, delivering information that was essential for organizing resistance activities, coordinating sabotage missions, and gathering intelligence. Despite the danger involved in such a job, Denise and other women who served as couriers showed incredible bravery. Denise's mission took her to Nazi-occupied France, where she worked to support the French resistance. Her job was to pass on vital intelligence and help maintain communications between the different resistance cells and Allied forces. The couriers worked in secret, often under the cover of night, avoiding Nazi patrols and collaborating with French resistance fighters to keep the war effort alive. It was incredibly risky, as anyone caught was likely to be executed. However, in 1944, during one of her missions, Denise's cover was blown. She was captured by the Gestapo after a raid, and, like so many others, subjected to brutal interrogation. The Nazis hoped to extract vital information that could break the network of resistance fighters. But Denise, like other courageous agents before her, remained unyielding under torture. Despite the relentless physical and psychological abuse she endured, she refused to betray her comrades or reveal any sensitive details about her mission or the people she worked with. She was determined not to compromise the people who were relying on her. Her resistance to the Gestapo's methods did not save her from the horrors that lay ahead. Denise was taken to Ravensbrück concentration camp. Located in northeastern Germany, Ravensbrück was a place where women from all over Europe were subjected to inhumane conditions. They were forced to perform grueling labor, often under brutal supervision, with little regard for their safety or well-being. Many prisoners were subjected to random acts of violence, and medical experiments were conducted on them without consent. Denise, like many others in Ravensbrück, was forced to endure extreme hardships. The conditions in the camp were appalling, with overcrowded barracks, lack of food, and the constant threat of punishment for any perceived disobedience. Yet Denise's spirit remained unbroken. Even in the face of these horrors, she continued to resist and maintain the values she had held on to since joining the war effort. In the early months of 1945, as the war neared its end, the Nazis continued to execute prisoners, particularly those who were seen as a threat or those who had been involved with the resistance. Denise's fate was sealed in early 1945 when she was executed by the Nazis, along with several other SOE agents. The Nazis had hoped that executing these women would crush the morale of the resistance, but instead, it only fueled the determination of others to continue the fight. Lillian Rolfe was another SOE agent who went into France to assist the resistance in 1944. She was trained in sabotage and espionage techniques, and she quickly became an invaluable part of the resistance network. Unfortunately, in the summer of 1944, she was betrayed and arrested by the Gestapo. Like many other spies, Lillian was tortured for weeks, but she never revealed any information. She was also sent to Ravensbrück, where she faced the horrors of forced labor, inadequate food, and constant abuse. In 1945, Lillian was executed along with Denise Bloch and Violette Szabo. Nancy Wake was an extraordinary woman whose life before and during World War II defied all expectations. She was born in 1912 in Wellington, New Zealand. After moving to Australia at a young age, she later settled in Paris, where she worked as a journalist. Her life in Paris, however, would soon be interrupted by the outbreak of World War II. When the Nazis began their occupation of France in 1940, Nancy was deeply disturbed by the brutality and the oppression that the French people were forced to endure. She was also horrified by the treatment of Jews and other marginalized groups under Nazi rule. Motivated by a strong sense of justice and an unyielding desire to fight back, Nancy joined the French resistance, where she quickly became an invaluable asset. Though she was initially involved in providing aid and shelter to those resisting Nazi forces, she soon took on the dangerous role of a courier. Her bravery and quick thinking were legendary. She was known for her ability to avoid detection, even in the most perilous situations. She had an extraordinary knack for staying calm under pressure and using her wits to outsmart the Nazis. She earned the nickname the White Mouse because of her ability to escape from seemingly impossible situations, evading Nazi capture time and time again. Nancy's work as a courier soon escalated as she became involved in organizing sabotage missions and helping to evacuate downed Allied airmen. She and the resistance members worked together to disrupt Nazi operations and ensure that vital intelligence reached the Allies. However, in 1943, despite her best efforts to stay hidden, Nancy's luck ran out. She was betrayed by a French collaborator who revealed her identity to the Gestapo. The Nazis launched a search for her, and Nancy was captured. The Gestapo knew the value of the information she could provide and sought to break her spirit through brutal interrogation and torture. She was subjected to horrific treatment, including physical abuse and mental pressure. She resisted their methods, drawing on her inner strength and determination. She later revealed that she often used her anger and hatred for the Nazis as a way to fuel her resolve during those dark times. Eventually, Nancy was freed, though the circumstances surrounding her release remain unclear. Some accounts suggest she was rescued by resistance members, while others believe her captors may have underestimated her or been too preoccupied with other matters. Regardless of how she escaped, Nancy was not deterred. Her determination to fight on was stronger than ever. After her escape, Nancy fled to Britain, where she was recruited by the SOE. Nancy underwent specialized training in espionage, sabotage, and guerrilla warfare. She became an expert in handling firearms, explosives, and other tools of resistance, further preparing her for the dangerous work that lay ahead. In 1944, she was sent back to France to continue her mission with the French resistance. Her work became even more critical as the war progressed, and the Allies planned for the invasion of Normandy. Nancy's courage and determination earned her the respect of those around her. She was awarded numerous medals for her actions during the war, including the George Medal, the Legion of Honor, and the Military Cross. She became one of the most decorated women of the war. Despite the recognition, Nancy remained humble and focused on the work that needed to be done. Nancy Wake passed away in 2011 at the age of 98, but her story continues to inspire people around the world. After the war, many survivors of the Nazi concentration camps and prisons returned to their countries, but the trauma they faced was beyond imagination. The women who had been captured as spies were not just physically scarred, they had also suffered psychological damage. A prime example of this is Christine Granville. She was a British spy who was born in Poland in 1908. Before the war, she had worked as a waitress in London. But when the war started, she joined the SOE and was trained in espionage. Her mission was to infiltrate Nazi-occupied France, help organize the resistance, and gather intelligence. In 1944, Granville was betrayed and captured. She was tortured by the Gestapo, but never revealed any information. After months of hardship, she managed to escape and continue her work. Granville's courage was incredible. She died tragically in 1952, stabbed by a jealous man. In the Soviet Union, female spies also played a key role in resisting the Nazis. One of the most notable was Lyudmila Pavlichenko, who wasn't a spy in the traditional sense, but was a sniper. She killed over 300 German soldiers during World War II. Although she wasn't caught by the Nazis, many Soviet women worked as spies behind enemy lines and faced similar treatment when they were captured. The Soviets' brutal approach to dealing with captured spies was no different from the Nazis' methods. The Nazis considered these women expendable. To them, the idea of a female spy was something they couldn't understand. Women were expected to be weak and fragile. So when they saw these women working in intelligence, they thought they were somehow betraying their gender. This made the punishment for being caught even worse. In many cases, these women didn't just face execution. They were humiliated, tortured, and forced to endure public displays meant to degrade them. Women who were suspected of being spies were sometimes paraded around the streets in chains, their heads shaved to mark them as criminals. Another tragedy involves Lise Meitner, an Austrian scientist who had been forced to flee Nazi Germany. Meitner was not a spy, but she was a key figure in nuclear research. She had helped discover nuclear fission, which was later used in the development of the atomic bomb. After being forced to escape to Sweden, she continued her research while the Nazis tried to force her to return. Her story wasn't one of being captured as a spy, but it shows how the Nazis' treatment of women extended beyond spies. Women who held knowledge or had connections to the enemy were often punished or tortured if caught. In Lisa's case, the Nazis saw her as a threat simply because of her scientific knowledge, which they thought could help the Allies. The stories of these women showed just how important female spies were in World War II. Their stories were often overlooked in history, but they are crucial to understanding the full scope of resistance to Nazi rule.